everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Bea and today we're going to be talking about all the books I read in March. So I went on like a reading bender in March. I normally read between like 8 to 10 books a month. It doesn't matter how much you read, it's just about enjoying the process. But I quite literally read 16 books in March, which is absurd for me. So I'm gonna try to keep it brief on each book because there's a lot. The first book I read in March was Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. I talked a lot about this book in depth in this video. This book is written beautifully, but it's disturbing. It reads like a psychological thriller and a fairy tale like had a baby, and that's this book. It's about the bridegroom. That's all his name is in the entire book. You never find out like his actual name. He marries this woman named Indigo, who's like an heiress to a big fortune and an estate and yada yada, okay? It goes through their relationship and how they like interweave fairy tales into their life with each other. And they get married on the prospect that he can never ask about her life. Like he can't know anything about her past. He can't go snooping, can't ask her questions until one day she has a relative who's currently in charge of the property that she owns and her inheritance, whatever, something like that. And she's on her like deathbed. So they have to go there. And for the first time, the bridegroom gets a hint at who she was before she's the woman that he married. It just unfolds from there. Very twisted, very disturbing, has themes of paying homage to fairy tales and how they represent our lives every day without us even realizing. Also like girlhood relationships that are toxic. That's all I'm gonna say about this one. I give it a 3.75 stars. The next books I read were This Duology by Mary E. Pearson. Is that her name? Oh my God. Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves. I can't really go into this one because it is the sequel in the duology, so I will limit what I say about this one. In this book, we're following Kazi, and she works for a queen of one of the kingdoms in this land, and she's kind of like a social justice warrior. She's a baddie. We love that for her. She helps the queen uphold law with like treasonous people and those that are abusing their power and such and so on. She is going to Tor's Watch, which is like what everyone believes is a new kingdom that's been ruled by this like outlaw family called the Ballingers. Is that their name? Anyways, I think it is the Ballingers, and Jace has just been thrust into power. He's the heir and he takes over after his father passes away. So he's taking over Tor's Watch. Everyone hates his family. Everyone thinks they're bad. Kazi shows up and she's like, you are acting in treason. This land isn't yours. Sparks fly, enemies to lovers. It's just good. It's just so good. It's basically like your classic fantasy. You have journeys, you have betrayals, you have politics. This one goes in heavily into Jace's family's history. I guess they both do, which is really interesting. And it's just like unlike any fantasy I've read before. I really love this duology. I literally read it in a span of 24 hours, like both of them. And these are big. I just like couldn't stop reading them. I gave them both 4 stars. Hello Omegaverse. I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I loved it, actually. This was my first dive into Omegaverse, and yeah, there's a scene in this, I'm sure you've heard about it if you haven't. I'm not gonna go into details about it, but it's very much Omegaverse. Look that up on your own free will. In this book, we're following Misery Lark, and she's like the princess of the vampires. Vampires with a Y, not an I, with a Y. And she isn't put into an arranged marriage with Lo Morland, who's like the alpha of the were pack, not werewolves, wares, okay? So she's in this arranged marriage and they're trying to make peace between the wares and the vampires. And then you have like the human world, which is its own thing. You have the humans, the wares, and the vampires, and this isn't making any sense. I'm not making any sense. This is her first paranormal romance, and you can tell that. She has the same charm, the same character development that you see in her books. There's still the STEM aspect because Misery Lark is like a tech girly. She's like a hacker. She agrees to marry Lo because there is a mystery of what happened to her best friend who is a human, and she believes that Lo has something to do with it. So she agrees to marry him to kind of snoop and hack into their databases. Plot, silly. Isn't strong. Doesn't really make much sense. Romance, cute. I really liked it. I really like the characters in this. I gave it a 3.5 or a 3.75. If you're wanting to tiptoe into Omegaverse, maybe try this. If that's gonna be something that bothers you, don't read this. There are like 2 scenes where something happens and I'm not gonna talk about it. It didn't bother me, but a lot of people it did. Good spice, besides good characters, fun time, little to no plot, silly, good vibes. I laughed a lot while reading this and I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. And then we have the one audiobook I listened to this month, and that is Stuck With You by Ali Hazelwood. So this is the second of, literally everyone and their mother is outside right now, just revving their engine, okay? Just like revving it. This is the second of the Steminist novellas, and I think they've been put together in a book called Loathe to Love You or something like that, but it follows 3 different friends. So this is book 2, it follows Sadie, and she is an engineer. She tries to be environmentally friendly. That's like her specialty within engineering. And one day, you know, she's going into work. She has like a big proposal to get her croissant that she always does before she presents to a potential client. And one day she runs into a man named Eric Novak, who, as we find out, this is not a spoiler, is also an engineer, and they hit it off and they have, you know, this like steamy one night thing. And then the next day she realizes he may not have been as good of a guy as she thought. And this is by hearsay. I didn't talk with him about it, that there is a big miscommunication thing, and that's all I'm gonna say about it, but it's really funny, the situation on how they have to finally like talk it out. And I loved this one. I loved Eric, and Sadie was such a cool, interesting character. I related to her a lot. She has OCD about some things, and I really identified with that. I thought that was really cool representation. It was kind of random and went with the plot like so perfectly, like propelled the plot forward and was vital to what was happening in the book and her as a character, and I really liked that. It's like a 4-hour audiobook, and I ended up giving it a 3.75 stars. And then the next book, I also do not have a physical copy of. I read it as an ebook. One day I was at one of my side jobs. I bartend sometimes, and one of the bars is like really chill, and in between customers I just read. I was on the Libby app and I was like, I've heard a lot about this book, so I'm gonna read it. And it was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, I believe is her name. Y'all, I was bartending for a metal show, okay? So the bar, let me just paint the scene for a second. Let me just map this place out for you. So there's like a bar area, and it's separate from the venue space where the stage and stuff is. There's like a wall and a door, you know, like a room. I was like cackling at this book. I was laughing so hard. I was like, I'm sure all these metalheads out here having a great time, like moshing, doing what they do, can hear me laughing over this music right now. Like, it was so funny. A main character who is down on her luck, love, with money, with her job, like her whole future, she feels down on her luck about. She comes across this ad, this apartment space. She's getting evicted and she's like, what am I gonna do? And she sees this like apartment that's like perfect for her, $200 a month, in a neighborhood that's perfect for her to get to all of her jobs like easily. And she's like, this is too good to be true. And her friends are like, yeah, we should probably go with you, or at least wait outside if you're gonna go tour it. She does, okay? She does. Who lives there currently? This very odd, handsome, proper, formal man who seems to be very awkward, but he's like innocent and he's just trying his best. He agrees to move in, like it's in the title, okay? My Roommate is a Vampire. Obviously, he's a vampire. He has just woken up from a sleep or coma type thing for a long time. And he's woken up and he's like,
I don't know anything about the 21st century. I don't know how to live and blend in this world.
And that's why he needed a roommate. This is not spoilers. Ate this book up. This was like creme de la creme. I loved it because I was just laughing. Everything he did just made me laugh so hard because he's trying his best. Like, Mans is really just trying his best to fit into this world and be a good guy. And he's like a vampire. And I didn't care one bit about the girl's subplot with her job, with anything. I read the book for him and their interactions together because just cackling. And you can skim the plot about her figuring her life out and enjoy the book still. Literally just wanted everything to do with this man. His name is like William Fitzpatrick or something like that. Doesn't matter. It was great. I had a great time. I laughed. I was giggling. I was flushed in the face. Like, oh, I also wanted to say there's like, of course, it's a romance. So there's gotta be like a third act conflict or something to prevent them from being together. It was so dumb. It was literally like, really? It was so dumb, but I still gave it, what did I give it? I gave it a 4-star. You know what, I'll stand by that. I will stand by my 4-star on this one because literally William Fitzpatrick, if that's even his name. Moving on, loved that book, 4-star for enjoyment. Plot, it would probably be like a 2.5, like it wasn't good, but had the best time ever. All right, buckle in. For some reason, I feel like I'm gonna go on and on about this one. Watch me not even do that though. Watch me be like, yeah, I liked it and move on. I read the Cruel Prince trilogy by Holly Black. Like I just said, I liked it. My jaw wasn't on the floor, okay? It didn't like knock my socks off. Cruel Prince is the first one. Then you have The Wicked King, and then you have The Queen of Nothing. I can't really talk about these two because they're parts of a series. So this is everyone's favorite. It was a letdown for me. And I'll get into that in a second. Cruel Prince. We follow Jude, who is a human. This book starts out like she's like 7 years old, so we're in the past. This person shows up at her house. It's her sister Taryn, and her older sister Vivi. They're just like watching TV, like being kids, you know, doing things like eating snacks, playing on the floor, watching TV. And this guy comes in and just slaughters her parents. Like that's how the book starts. All 3 sisters get taken to the fairy realm, are raised by the guy that murdered their parents. His name is Maddox. You find out that only Vivian is actually his. The twins, Jude and Taryn, are by their human father. You start in fairy, and Jude and Taryn are going to school like all the fairy children do, all the fae do, and they're learning about fairy and they're interested in it and they're having a good time. They want very different things out of life. Taryn wants to get married. Jude wants to be a knight for the king, and for all things considered, they are settling in pretty well into fairy. The only thing is they're human, the twins are, so they aren't treated the best. One of the people that absolutely treats them the worst is a prince that goes to school with them, and his name is Cardan. He is the youngest of I think 7 siblings that are the children of the current High King of Fairy, if that makes sense. The whole series, and I would say go into this blind because I did, and I really enjoyed that I did. You get introduced to different types of fae, descriptions of fae, they're different courts, they're different little mini kingdoms. It's very politically driven, but it's really easy to understand. There is a romance that forms, like, it's crumbs. The whole series, crumbs of romance. That's okay. Like, it didn't take away from it for me. Jude is a baddie. She's very strategic. She wants what she wants. The series is full of betrayals and politics. Like I said, it's so good that way. Holly Black knows how to write fae. Queen of it, actually. High Queen of Fairy, that's Holly Black. The only thing I had an issue with was the 3rd book. There's a big plot thing. I'm not gonna say it. What the hell was that? Like, what happens to one of the main characters? Literally, that's all I'm gonna say. This, out of everything I could have imagined the series ending as, that was the last thing I would have pictured happening to get to the conclusion. The whole series spans over this one overarching plot. Each book has a little bit of a mini plot, but this one felt a little dragged out the way the overarching plot was, and then the sum of it in the 3rd book was just like, what? I still gave all 3 books a 4-star. It's like a 4 to 4.5 star series. I know that math doesn't math, but it does in my head. A 4 to 4.5 star series, and I'll stand by that, and I will recommend it to everyone. That last book, the ending, I've waited so long to get to the ending of the series. I thought this was gonna be crazy, and it was crazy, but not in a this is badass way, but in a what did I just read? If you know these books, is a long drawn out series with an overarching plot that hasn't had low moments for me. This series did a little bit. Kat one said, let's let her in. Come here. She's here. Suki wanted to say hi. Say hello. Hey. Anyways, that's how I felt about the Cruel Prince trilogy. It is probably one of my favorite series I've read of all time, even though last quarter of the last book was a little strange to me. It felt like such an odd way to end it, is what I'm trying to say. Loved it though, and I'm so glad that people are like 6-star series, because I can see that. The trickery, the fae, the politics, the betrayals, the found family, like it's really good. Next we have none other than Magnolia Parks. I get the hype. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about this, shall we? Because I have some thoughts. Love the drama in this. High society London meets Gossip Girl. How many loves do you get in a lifetime? She is a beautiful, self-involved, and mildly neurotic London socialite. He is Britain's most photographed bad boy who broke her heart. But Magnolia Parks and BJ Ballantyne are meant to be, aren't they? I absolutely couldn't stand most of the characters in this book. I don't think you're supposed to. You have Magnolia and BJ, and it's told from their perspectives. This is book 1 in Magnolia Parks' universe. Magnolia aggravated me to no end. Like, her indecisiveness, her neediness, her only apparent emotion being self-regard. Like, it just really drove me crazy. I couldn't identify with her. And then you have BJ, who is a terrible person. Like, sleeps with other people, flaunts it in her face. Like, look what I did.
I was with a Miu Miu model last night.
It's very toxic, and you're not supposed to think that this is like super romantic. There are moments that are romantic, like, don't get me wrong, but their relationship as a whole, toxic. Like, you shouldn't idolize this relationship, but you can root for them to like figure it out and be better people. And that's what I found myself doing as I was reading this. I'm definitely going to continue the series because it was entertaining. It was quick, kind of brainless read. I never cried. I never gotten emotional. I had like one moment. It was like anger. I was like disgusted. I liked it. The next book is Daisy Hates. Daisy and Christian. That's the perspective of book 2. It follows Christian and Daisy, and I think it follows the same timeline, or like there's crossover between this timeline and Daisy Hates. They're kind of like a comfort read in a weird way because they're so easy to read and the drama is so like outlandish and you just want to. Did my camera battery die in the middle of talking about this book? Yes. I think I was saying something like, you want to hit every character with a dump truck, supposed to root for their growth, and I did, and that I did. 3.5 stars, and I will be continuing this series. This lighting is insane. Took me about an hour to charge my battery enough to be able to continue, so now the light's just coming in and it's crazy. My other kid wants up. My other child. Say hi. This is my other child. It be your own kids. Now that both of my cats have assaulted my microphone and I got humbled by both of my children, let's continue. The Rebel Blue Ranch series, or at least the 2 that are out right now. This is my first cowboy romance and I'm in it. I get it, y'all. This cover's also gorgeous. Love them. Done and Dusted is about Emmy Ryder. She is the youngest of the Ryder siblings. There's Gus, Wes, and then Emmy. They all grew up running Rebel Blue Ranch. It's Meadowlark, Wyoming is where it takes place. I don't know if that's a real place, but Wyoming is. I know that much, okay. Follows Emmy. She comes back into town. Something bad has happened. She's known for being like this excellent writer. Now like her spirit is broken and she feels like less than a whole person. She had moved to the city. She was getting far in her career as a rodeo girl. She immediately bumps into her like high school childhood enemy, Luke Brooks, yes. So that's what it's about. I do like this series a lot because every book so far has had some mental health representation in it. This one had PTSD and I felt like it was done really well. This follows the middle child, Wes, and a woman named Ada. So Wes takes on the project of renovating the old house on the Rebel Blue Ranch property to make into like a guest house for like a bed and breakfast type thing. He hires this woman named Ada to do it. This one has major depressive disorder representation in it, and it was also done really well. I have both of these. I have PTSD and I have major depressive, so I was a big fan of how they're represented and how they can play into your life every day, but also your relationships with friends and romantic interests. I gave this one a 3.75, this one a 3.5. Honestly, they probably deserve a little bit more than that. I did really enjoy them, but this one I liked a little bit less. I think this one was more like insta-lusty. I just didn't like it as much, but I still had a great time and I really cared about the characters. And Rebel Blue Ranch by Lila Sage, highly recommend. They're fast and easy reads, just a good time. Oh, I also want to say these books have really good sex positivity and sexual health conversations that I feel like are becoming more popular in romance books. It makes me very happy to see that because it's a real thing. It's very real conversations that people should be having, and seeing them in books makes it easier for some people. It doesn't ruin the moment to have these talks. This is getting a little deep. Okay, but just bear with me. It doesn't ruin the moment to talk about the stuff that is talked about in these books. In fact, it makes their connection deeper because they care and respect about one another. So, big fan of that. Next, I read The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is my first Lauren Asher book. Also my first billionaire romance book. This book absolutely cracks me up to think about it. Book Leo or Leonie put out a video reading this and you should really go watch it. Just search the Book Leo. It goes in depth and like pulls out quotes about this book, and honestly, she says like some really good things about it, and she also roasts the out of it, and it's so good. Like, I love her content. I love her deep dives, so please go watch that. Rowan is one of 3 brothers, and their grandfather has passed away, and their grandfather was like the Walt Disney of Disneyland, who owns Dreamland, so it's like the Disneyland equivalent. He passes away, and when he passes, he leaves letters in order for the 3 grandsons to receive their inheritance and receive a portion or a piece in running Dreamland. So in this one, we have one of the brothers, Rowan. He needs to fix something big or something like that within Dreamland, and he ends up deciding to redo an attraction, want to redo a ride, and he calls in someone who's like not an architect, not an engineer. You would think it would be an engineer, okay? Logic goes out the window with this book. She's just like an artist, okay? She's like, she comes up with concepts. She's the idea person, and her name is Zara, and it follows their romance. My qualms with this book is that it's very much like Rowan wants to not be abusive and take advantage of his employees by seeing what Zara goes through. So it's like he sees her like struggle and he's like, oh, I should probably care about my employees. And then the plot goes on from there. Obviously, Rowan is not a good dude. Zara is a baddie. Like, love her. Give this 3.5. Yeah, exactly. 3.5. Hi, the next 2 I don't have physical copies of, so we're just gonna put them on the screen. The first one is Vladimir by, who is it? I think it's Julia May Jones. I saw this book everywhere like a year ago. And it's about this woman who is a professor, an English professor at a college. So is her husband. Her and her husband have this agreement, open marriage, I guess. They're chill with it until her husband gets accused of using his power as a professor to exploit his students, basically. So he sleeps with his students, is what I'm trying to say. Even though students are consenting, there is the conversation of what does it mean though when you have that power dynamic, like a student-teacher dynamic like that. The book talks about that a lot. It also has themes of sexual morals, how we as a society talk about those and represent those, what is considered taboo. And this book did a really excellent job at forcing the reader to consider where they stand on all these different points that are brought up. You really got to analyze your own beliefs as a reader, which I really loved. The author did not hold your hand while reading this. The main character, both the wife and the husband, terrible people. Like, the things that they do and say and excuse, terrible people. The author is like, are they terrible because they're terrible, or are they terrible because you think they're terrible, or because society says they're terrible? And I know where I stand on this book. Some people may feel differently about what is right and what is wrong. I really love books that are just bring up hard, difficult discussions like this, and it feels very important to read this. The reason why it's called Vladimir is because in the English department, there is a new professor that comes along. He's a younger guy. His name is Vladimir, and he is married, has a wife and a child. In the downfall of our narrator, who's the wife, thinking about what her husband has done, excusing her husband, which is one of the controversial parts of this book that makes you think about your own values and what you would believe is right or wrong in this situation. It's not an easy read. Check trigger warnings, okay? She becomes obsessed with Vladimir. Like, the plot, this is the plot, okay? It starts out here and it just spirals. Like, it goes crazy. I loved this book. I rated it a 4, but I'd probably give it a 4.5. It wasn't a 5-star feeling, but so important. The stuff it talks about is such difficult things to process, and you really have to step outside yourself as an individual and your own beliefs and think about how those have been formed by society and whether that's good or whether that's bad. And I love that the author did that. The author did not outwardly say what is right and what is wrong. Like, obviously, I think the professor guy, I think he's a creep. And his wife, for excusing him, hated our narrator. And as the book goes on, you kind of see her thought process unravel and her own beliefs kind of grow and change and also take steps back. It's just such a complex read. I highly recommend reading that. 4.5 stars. Next book I read is Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is technically a novella. fantasy x sci-fi. You have this civilization which feels like medieval. At least it's more barbaric. They have this belief, they have belief in different gods. They also have these beliefs in what's called elders. In the past, a bunch of elders came, tried to observe their society. They look different. They have these technological advancements that the people don't have. You find out, I don't even know if I want to say this. I don't know how to talk about this book because the whole freaking thing is just like absurdly brilliant. And to talk about it is to ruin the plot. In the beginning of the book, you have the princess of this kingdom, and she believes strongly that the elder, there's one left, who's in this large tower, can help destroy a demon that has been terrorizing her people. So she goes to ask him for help. And you find out stuff along the way. It has really good conversations, morals with stepping in against fate. What if someone had come in and helped us evolve over time and helped with technological advancements without us having to learn ourselves? And it's just a really good conversation about that. It's the perfect mix of fantasy because you have the medieval, the spirits, the kingdoms, and then you have the sci-fi with all the tech. It was just so interesting, and it's very short. This book is just so good. I loved it. That being said, I felt like this deserved to be a bigger book or even a series. I would have loved more background on how the Elder became what is known as the Elder and where he came from and what he does than we get. So I gave it a 3.5, and I think that's fair. It is a novella, like I said, but I'm definitely interested in reading more by this author because of this novella. The last book, A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. In this we follow Jack. He was sent to the mainland when he was like 10 years old from his home island, which is called Cadence. And Cadence is an island that has like magic, different elemental magic. So you have spirits of earth, wind, fire, and air. 21st night of September. And he comes back because he receives a letter summoning him back because girls on his home island, Cadence, are going missing and they need him, for some reason unbeknownst to him, to help them figure out what is happening to the girls. And that's really the book. You have a romance that unfurls, you have the mystery. This book is spooky. There are some parts where I was like reading at night and I kept thinking I saw a shadow, and I just loved it. It wasn't like so scary, it wasn't like a horror. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. And he works closely with Adara, who is the princess of Cadence on one side of Cadence, the east side. Cadence is split down the middle. And you have the east side, who has pros and cons to living on one side, pros and cons to living on the west side. And it was split up by a curse. And it goes into that curse. It's just so good. There's a lot of trickery, and it was so beautifully written. And I can't express enough. Like, I really love this book. I gave it a 4.5 stars. So that is it. That is my wrap up of my March reads. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care of yourself and do what you love. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.